In 1815, France, prisoners are sent to do hard labor until their time was over. One day, the prisoners are pulling a huge ship to the dock, while the head of the prison guards, Javert, is overseeing the operation. After their task, Javert asked one of the prisoners, named Jean, to retrieve the French flag from the ship. Jean shows a huge amount of strength when he drags a large wooden flagpole and delivers it to Javert, surprising everyone, including Javert. Next, Javert tells Jean that he is paroled from prison after 19 years, but gives him a letter saying he is a dangerous man. Jean is furious when he sees the letter, because all he did was steal a loaf of bread for his sister's dying child. Jean reminds Javert that he only served 5 years in prison for that crime, but the other 14 years were for trying to escape, which makes him dangerous. After being released, Jean tries to find work and a place to sleep, but he is thrown out wherever he goes because of his parole paper. Then Jean finds a church on a mountain and sleeps outside. But the priest sees the poor man and invites him inside for food and a warm place to stay. Later, when everyone is asleep, Jean steals all the silverware he can fit in his bag and leaves. But in the morning, he is caught by the police, who bring him to the priest. However, the priest smiles and tells Jean why he left without taking the rest of the stuff the priest gave him. The priest lies for Jean's sake, saying he is the one who gave him the silverware. After the police leave, the priest tells Jean to begin a new life with the silverware and be an honest man for the rest of his days. That day, Jean promises to be a better man in front of God and tears his parole papers, throwing them off the mountain. 8 years later, the country is on the brink of revolution due to poverty. At a local factory, the foreman harasses Fantine, a young woman working there. The workers there discover she has a child and report it to the foreman. Jean, now a successful businessman and mayor, arrives just as Fantine is being mistreated. While trying to resolve the situation, he runs into Javert, now a police inspector, and their uneasy conversation is interrupted when a man is trapped under a carriage. Jean lifts the carriage, showing his immense strength, which raises Javert's suspicions about his true identity. The foreman then throws Fantine on the street. Fantine, struggling to support her sick child, sells everything she owns and eventually turns to prostitution. When she's arrested for attacking a client, Jean steps in to help, taking her to the hospital. Later, Javert learns that a man has been arrested under Jean's name and goes to apologize to him. But Jean, fearing for the innocent man, rushes to court to testify, only to be disbelieved. In the hospital, Fantine dies, asking Jean to care for her daughter, Cosette. Javert arrives to confront Jean, who, knowing his true identity is exposed, escapes by jumping into the river, leaving Javert in pursuit. Next, Fantine's daughter is seen living inside a bar, doing all the hard chores assigned by her foster parents, Monsieur Thénardier and Madame Thénardier. Meanwhile, the couple treats their own daughter very well, which always saddens Cosette. The couple runs their small town, charging everyone unfairly for the very poor service they provide. They rip every penny out of anyone, including poor Fantine, who sends all her money to her child, thinking she is sick. Next, Jean finds Cosette in the town and tells the couple that he wants to take her with him and will pay whatever her debt is. After the couple keeps adding up her price, saying they spent a lot of money on her, Jean offers them an amount they can't refuse. So they agree, and he takes her. Soon, Javert comes looking for Jean because he knows he will come for Cosette, but the couple tells him they are already gone. While they try to leave the city, Javert is already waiting for them at the city gates, and Jean takes Cosette and runs. With Javert on their tail, Jean climbs to the roof of a nearby church and hides from him. After Javert leaves, Jean heads to the church only to find the man he rescued from the carriage, who helps them hide. That night, Javert makes a promise in front of God to never sleep unless he finds Jean and the girl. Later, 9 years have passed, and the revolution that has been brewing is about to explode. The poor are tired of seeing the rich look down on them, and they want to kill the king, just like the previous one they killed. This revolution is led by a student club called the Friends of the ABC, who want to take control of the government. Among them is a man named Marius, who comes from a wealthy family but doesn't believe in taking what he hasn't earned. After a protest march in the streets, Marius heads to his small apartment, where he talks with Eponine, who is madly in love with him. Later that day, Marius goes to the streets, where he sees Cosette with Jean. and both of them fall in love at first sight. But Cosette and Jean are taken to a corner where they are about to be scammed by Monsieur Thénardier and Madame Thénardier, who act as poor beggars on the street with their other children, including the eldest, Gavroche. This act is orchestrated by none other than Éponine, who turns out to be their daughter. The couple immediately recognizes Jean and Cosette and asks Jean to pay more money for Cosette. Jean refuses to give them any money, and their argument gets the attention of Javert, who was nearby. Javert doesn't recognize Jean and Cosette and tells them that the street is not safe these days, so they should leave. After they leave, the couple informs Javert who Jean is, and he realizes his search might finally come to an end. Desperate, Marius asks Éponine to find the address of Cosette, and she agrees because she loves him. That night, the friends of the ABC finally decide to start a riot, but Marius is not himself lately, as all he does is think about Cosette. While most of the gang thinks it is natural, the leader of the uprising, Enjolras, tells Marius to only focus on the mission, as their plan is at a crucial stage. But their meeting is interrupted by Éponine, who comes to Marius to tell him that she has found where Cosette lives. Meanwhile, Cosette asks Jean why they always have to be on the run, but he only tells her that he had a bad past and must hide at all times. Next, Marius arrives at the gate of Jean's house and talks to Cosette, while Éponine tearfully watches. But soon Jean comes outside to take Cosette back inside, and Marius leaves without even noticing Éponine. However, Monsieur Thénardier and Madame Thénardier, along with their gang, arrive at the place and learn Jean and Cosette live there. Éponine screams to warn Jean and Cosette, and her father beats her for betraying them. Jean then tells Cosette to prepare to leave for England, as he thinks Javert is at the gates. Hearing this, Cosette writes a letter to Marius and puts it where they last met. But Éponine sees this and takes the letter for herself. Next, Éponine tells Marius that Cosette and Jean are gone, and he runs to her place, but they have already left. Éponine, seeing Marius has no feelings for her, decides to join the riot by dressing as a man. Meanwhile, Jean and Cosette find a place to stay before they proceed to England. Later that night, the friends of the ABC inform the frustrated citizens of France that they will take their country tomorrow. The people provide everything they have for the cause, and Marius returns to them, informing them he will fight beside them. The next day, while the royal family and high-ranking officials are going through the city, the friends of the ABC start the riot by singing uprising songs, and the people follow them. What they don't know is Javert is disguised as a rebel and is among them. But amidst an emotional song, the police and royal guard start shooting, and the rebels fight back. Soon, the people of Paris start offering them furniture so they can build a barricade to defend themselves. In the middle of the chaos, Enjolras asks for a volunteer to go to the other side and find out what they are planning, and surprisingly, disguised Javert volunteers. At night, Javert returns and tells them that the armies are too powerful and they are in great danger. He says the army will not attack them, but will wait until they starve out. But soon, Gavroche notices the guard, and Javert's identity is revealed. The rebels quickly surround Javert and beat him, with Enjolras knocking him out. But soon the armies approach and fire at them. The rebels fight back, and both sides suffer losses. Marius then makes a daring move by trying to carry a gunpowder barrel to the armies. Éponine tries to stop him, but she is shot in the process. Marius carries the barrel to the armies and tells them he will blow it with his torch if they don't fall back. The shooting stops for now, and it starts raining. Éponine confesses her love for Marius and gives him the letter Cosette sent him, but sadly, she dies. Next, Marius writes a letter to Cosette and gives it to Gavroche, who has seen where Jean and Cosette are staying. Gavroche gives the letter to Jean, who reads it. Jean realizes Marius's love for Cosette, but he knows Marius is on the battlefield, so he goes to help him. The friends of the ABC are skeptical when they see Jean at first, but when Jean takes out snipers positioned to strike them, they believe he is with them. Jean sees that Javert is arrested by the rebels and asks them to give him to him. They agree. Jean takes Javert away from the rebels, and when Javert thinks he will kill him, Jean spares his life. He tells Javert he doesn't hold any grudges because Javert was just doing his job. Jean then shoots the wall to make the rebels believe he has killed him. Jean returns to the barricade, and they all sleep there. In the morning, Marius informs Enjolras that they are low on ammunition, and the rain has damaged their gunpowder. But above all, the friends of the ABC are sad to see that all the people have now gone home, and they are the only ones left. However, the friends of the ABC decide to fight with everything they have until they all fall. Gavroche steps outside the barricade, singing the rebel song, but the army doesn't care that he is a child and kills him, which angers the friends of the ABC. They retaliate by shooting at the army, but the army brings cannons and strategic fighting techniques to quickly break through the makeshift barricade. The army overwhelms them, and some of the friends of the ABC ask the people to open their homes, but the people just ignore them. Next, Jean notices that Marius has been shot and rushes to help him. Later, all the friends of the ABC are eliminated, and Enjolras is finally killed while waving the red revolutionary flag. As the streets fill with blood, Javert returns wearing his uniform and searches for Jean's body, but he cannot find him among the dead. He gives Gavroche his Medal of Honor and continues his search for Jean. Jean, meanwhile, is trying to sneak away with the injured Marius through a sewage tunnel. Javert sees the open tunnel and waits for Jean on the other side. As Jean drags Marius out of the tunnel, he encounters Monsieur Thénardier, who steals Marius's ring and tells Jean the way out. Jean leaves the tunnel and finds Javert waiting for him. Jean tells him that he will return to him once he has taken Marius to the hospital, and simply walks past Javert without waiting for an answer. Javert, holding his gun, is torn between his duty and his morals, but ultimately allows Jean to go. Next, Javert throws his gun into the sewer, letting his own judgment take over. He reflects on all the people he had taken into custody, questioning if they truly deserved it. Javert doesn't know the answer anymore, and in his confusion and despair, he takes his own life by jumping into the river. Meanwhile, Marius, who doesn't know what happened after he was shot, is alive and well, thanks to Jean's quick thinking and efforts to get him to the hospital. However, he is devastated to learn that all his friends are dead. He mourns their loss and heads to Jean's place, where he is reunited with Cosette. Jean then tells Marius his life story and asks him to never reveal his true identity, as it would disgrace Cosette. Jean gives his blessings for Marius and Cosette to marry, then leaves their lives once and for all. Next, Marius and Cosette marry, but Monsieur Thénardier and Madame Thénardier arrive at the ceremony, demanding to tell the army that Marius was a friend of the ABC and that his life was saved by none other than Jean. Marius doesn't believe that Jean saved his life, so Monsieur Thénardier shows him the ring he stole. Marius, enraged, punches Monsieur Thénardier, and the couple is thrown out of the celebration. Next, Marius and Cosette visit Jean, who is quietly waiting in a church. They both thank him for saving their lives. Jean gives Cosette his confession in a letter and dies peacefully. In the afterlife, Jean is reunited with Fantine and all the others who had died in France. Together, they sing once again for their freedom and the life they lived. They sing for a better tomorrow, both for the living and for those who have already died. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.